Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Just recently, I was very sad to hear about the passing of Mariclare Costello, who played Miss Rosemary Hunter, our school teacher, who went on to marry Reverend Fordwick. So I just wanted to do a segment here paying tribute to Mariclare. My sincere thanks to all of you who have reached out with such lovely comments about Mariclare and such heartfelt condolences on behalf of all of us who knew and loved Mariclare. On her Facebook page, Cammie shared an obituary on Mariclare, and I wanted to share some of that with you. Mariclare Catherine Costello Arbus passed away on the morning of April 17th, 2026 in Brooklyn, New York at the age of 90. She was born February 3, 1936 in Peoria, Illinois, the youngest of three sisters. Her mother was secretary to the Speaker of the Illinois House of Representatives in Peoria and Springfield. Her father was a civil engineer for the Illinois Department of Transportation. She attended St. Mark's School and the Academy of Our Lady in Peoria and went to Clark College in Dubuque, Iowa, as well as a sojourn at the University of Vienna. She received her master's in theater and education from Catholic University, where she studied improv. Mariclare performed for President Kennedy as Nerissa in The Merchant of Venice. After graduate school, she went to New York City to pursue theater. She worked at Sheridan Square Theater, the Public Theater, and on Broadway, and was a lifetime member of the Actors Studio. She was selected for the original Lincoln Center Repertory Company, where she trained with and worked alongside Jerome Robbins, Faye Dunaway, and James Earl Jones. She originated the role of Louise in Arthur Miller's After the Fall opposite Jason Robards, directed by Elia Kazan, and appeared on Broadway in Harvey alongside Jimmy Stewart. Theater continued to be a passion as Mariclare continued to act, direct, and teach while raising her daughter in Los Angeles. This passion continued as she led the drama program at St. Paul the Apostle Elementary School in Westwood, directed at Loyola High School and Loyola Marymount University, where she also taught acting for many years. She directed several productions for Interact Theater, including Our Town, and led a theater group at Homeboy Industries, the largest gang rehabilitation and reentry program in the world. It also shared information about how Mariclare knew how to get people out of their own heads and focused on a task outside themselves, allowing them to access their own creative voices. And beyond her work, she loved stray animals, rescued bugs, fed birds. She was a wonderful cook, refinished countless floors, and collected objects, letters, photographs, etc. She made every space she inhabited more beautiful. Warm, curious, generous, and tough, she had the constitution of an ox and was never sick and was always up for an adventure. Mariclare was married for many years to actor Alan Arbus, and they had a daughter. I always love when I can find articles that actually quote a person in their real voice, that they basically do the interview and then it's transcribed as to what they actually said. So I came across such an article about Mariclare in something called The Terror Trap. And this article was originally done in July of 2011. And Mariclare shares similar information about her upbringing, including, I'm from Peoria, Illinois. I had two older sisters and two male cousins from Chicago who were super, super smart. One ended up in the CIA. They would come down to Peoria to visit us, and they and my sisters would write plays for us. We would do the plays in the basement. I remember my first appearance was in that basement where we had an old icebox because we had changed to a refrigerator and this thing had been sitting there. Because I was so young, there wasn't much for me to do in the play. But at the end, somebody opened the icebox and there I was, at which point my parents and my aunt and uncle and everybody in the audience just gasped. They were so horrified I had been in there. Wow. Were you able to breathe okay? Mariclare says, I didn't have any problem with it at all. I do remember it kind of visually, but I don't recall the emotion of it. I've been told about it many times. Was it at that point you knew you wanted to act? No, I wasn't thinking about that then at all. In high school, I did audition for a big variety musical show, and for some reason they made me the student director of it. I was basically extremely shy and quiet at that time, although probably not anymore. That was a very outgoing thing for me to have to do. I always loved primarily musical comedies. I would listen to the LP records of musicals. My parents took all of us to Chicago to see Up in Central Park, South Pacific, and Carousel, which was the second musical I saw and my favorite. That did it for me. Skipping ahead, we move on to the movie Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Let's Scare Jessica to Death is not a project of Mariclare's I'm familiar with, but sounds like it was quite an experience. And she's asked, how did that film come your way? She said, one summer, I got a call to come to Old Saybrook, Connecticut. The girl who they had for my role, the role of Emily, had been let go for whatever reason. There was a scene where the four of you are in the water and the one in which you and Zora are playing around and you try to drown her, Mariclare. I'll tell you the thing about those scenes, that water was unbelievably cold, capital letters cold. We were shivering, shaking. It was so cold. They would take us out there and we'd get in the water and shoot until they couldn't shoot anymore. They'd have to bring us into the trailer we had and put blankets on us, and we would drink hot things, then go back in to get the next take. At one point, we took a shot of whiskey just to warm us up so we could go back in and shoot more. Sounds like quite the grueling experience. The article continues to cover more details of the filming of Let's Scare Jessica to Death. And then they hit a point where they started talking about other things in her career. And she was asked, you were Miss Hunter on the Waltons. What was that like? Mariclare, well, I had the best time on that. We love you as Miss Hunter. Mariclare says, oh, thank you. I had the greatest time with Richard Thomas and John Ritter, whom my character later married. Ritter and Thomas and I laughed from the beginning of the day until the end of the day. We spent a lot of time together. They were great. So many people on the Waltons were really good. They were terrific actors on the show. Then she was asked, how about the Fitzpatricks? I remember I had to go see Philip Mandalkar, the producer, at some point and tell him I was pregnant prior to shooting. He said, oh my God, we will write it in. So they wrote it in. All that stuff about the pregnancy in the series, I was really expecting. My daughter was born during it, and she played my child on the show. It was so cool. She was always on the set with me, with a friend who was taking care of her when I was filming. She was right there. They have a few shots of me with her. I hope you enjoyed hearing some of those pieces directly from Mariclare. As far as the Waltons, she appeared in 15 episodes, starting with season 1, where she was in the typewriter and advised and helped John Boy as a budding writer who wanted to be submitting his work and told him that he would have to figure out how to actually get it typed up on a real typewriter, which led him to, of course, borrowing the typewriter from the Baldwin sisters. Then in the episode The Fire, she had that conflict with Lois May and her father when he didn't like that she was teaching about Charles Darwin and evolution. In The Scholar, she finds out that John Boy is teaching Verdi to write because Elizabeth sort of, lets the secret out, and that causes some real upset for Verdi. And John Boy, of course, gets accused of betraying Verdi, which wasn't true. And then she finished up in episode 23, The Townie. As we moved into season 2, she was in The Thanksgiving Story, The Substitute, The Triangle. Now, of course, The Triangle was what established her initial relationship with Reverend Fordwick, and a bit of a love triangle between John Boy, who had a real crush on Miss Hunter, who was very jealous of Reverend Fordwick and didn't like that she suddenly was so much more interested in him. And John Boy felt that he was losing her attention and she had really been his mentor. So it took him a bit to sort that out, but a nice additional aspect of her life, Miss Hunter's life, and giving her a love interest there. Then the graduation, where of course it's John Boy's graduation, and she has helped to guide those students, and him in particular, towards graduating high school and what direction he's going to go in the future. In season 3, she appeared in The First Day and also the episode The Choice. In season 4, she was in the episode The Sermon, and I believe this is the episode where Reverend Fordwick and Miss Hunter actually get married and head off on their honeymoon. So I think we just saw her very briefly. And then episode 18, The Burnout, when both Aaron and Jim Bob end up staying with the Fordwicks while the house is being repaired. In season 5, which was sadly the last season that she was with us, she was in the episode The Cloudburst when Mary Ellen, me, when I get to deliver her baby. And that was very sweet to get to have those scenes with her. And then the final episode we saw her in was The Career Girl when Erin graduated, and she presides over the graduation and also attends the party at the house afterwards. I took a look in Goodnight, John Boy because I wanted to see if Mariclare was spoken about or if she had anything to say about any episodes. And so I found a couple things once again in her words. A vivid memory of working on the Waltons was on an episode in which we filmed outdoors on the Warner Brothers lot in a tree-filled area near a lake. It was at a picnic with races and games. Richard Thomas and John Ritter and I were in a series of scenes together that day. Richard and John were great friends in life as well as in this episode, and they made each other laugh. Oh, how they made each other laugh. And they both made me laugh. In between takes, it was like being with two great master clowns, their competing pratfalls, their regular jokes, and their gross-out jokes. They filled in with each other's punchlines. It would accelerate until it was time to do a take, and we would all become sober. This respite gave them time to be inspired and start all over again, even funnier. And then she also shared from the episode, The Triangle. The best thing about filming the Waltons was that they let me bring my dog Jake to work. While doing a play in New York City, Jake had followed me home from the theater one night, so he returned with me to California. I don't know anything about his life before I met him, but the first time he was on the set with me and they called action, he lay down and was perfectly still, and the director called cut, at which time he'd jump up and shake hands. You can see him in some episodes. I never took him on any other set. Thank you, Harry Harris. I always loved working with Mariclare Costello. She was just gentle and sweet and funny and good-natured and so very, very talented. I've talked a lot about the concept of never let them catch you acting. And she was certainly an example of that. Her work was simple, it was honest, but it was so deep and heartfelt and genuine that we really believed her as a Depression-era teacher in a small rural area. And she was the kind of teacher that I think we all loved to have, and hopefully we all were able to have teachers like that along the way. She nurtured and cared about her students and really, really wanted them to have the best education and to prepare them to have a life that was fulfilling. I had been trying for some time to track down Mariclare. I talked to various different people that I thought might know how to contact her. And I was still working on that when I got the very heartbreaking news that she had passed away. I didn't realize she was 90, but with someone like Mariclare, that seems way too young to be gone. We will miss her greatly, and I'm so grateful that we have all those wonderful episodes on the Waltons and the rest of her body of work to continue to remember her by. She has left quite a legacy behind, and I'm sure I am not the only one who will mourn her passing. Thank you for joining me for this tribute to Mariclare Costello as we say a final good night. I will see you next time for more behind the scenes of the Waltons. Thanks for watching.